Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Golf and Politics. And if you like good golf courses, if you like golf course architecture, today is an episode for you. The Golf Magazine Top 100 list was just released, and we have Rob, who is spent a long time being a golf course rater, and we have Jake Marvin, who has done work as a golf course rater. And we're going to talk about this Top 100 list. And what makes a course get onto this list? What's controversial about this list? We're going to go through the pros and cons of it and talk about some of these great golf courses. Rob, if you want to introduce Jake, and then we'll get things kicked off here.
Yeah, it sounds good. I met Jake this year on an Outpost Club trip to France. I was there with my buddy Dominic Hersman, and Jake and I got to know each other pretty quickly and realized we both have the same sickness of golf architecture and travel. Jake is probably our first guest on the show, who grew up playing Stephen Riverside Golf Club in Stephen, Minnesota. I believe it's a 9-hole muni, Jake?
That's right, 9 holes, town about 600 people. So I don't know many people who've been there, period, much less that would be on your podcast rule.
Well, Matt and I grew up playing Highland Springs Par 3 in West Virginia.
Very nice.
Brook Hills and Spring Hills, so not too far off. Jake is a graduate of Notre Dame. He worked in finance in North Carolina and Texas, where his love of architecture grew. He is currently a member of one of the top 100 courses on this list. I will not say which one, but I will say it is 4 spots behind Fox Chapel, where I am a member. And I think Jake has played over 500 golf courses in 9 countries. So that qualifies him today to pontificate on this list. And I'm happy to join in on that too.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm much more qualified to speak to the golf than the politics side of this podcast. So you brought me on for the right episode.
Well, don't. We are going to make you answer some political questions at the end. Nobody escapes without at least 1 or 2 political questions.
I didn't think I would.
But let me start by saying I'm just jealous of both of you because you played a lot more of these great golf courses than I have. But I'm working extremely hard to catch up, having my best year yet. So about to play a couple of the top 100 here before the end of the year. So, gentlemen, today we're going to talk about the Golf Magazine Top 100 list that just came out. Guys, do you have any surprises on this new list that's come out?
There aren't too many surprises. I think overall it's a pretty solid list. The only thing that caught my eye was that there are, let's see here, 4, 5, 6. There are about 10 courses that have opened either this year or within the last 3. So to put that in perspective, Matt, in our lifetimes, there are only 18 courses on the entire list that have been built since 1980. So this is a list that favors older classic architecture, typically from before World War II. So you're talking about Alister, MacKenzie, Donald Ross, Tillinghast, Seth Rayner, C.B. McDonald, etc. Those always tend to populate the top 40 spots on every list. But the surprises on this one were just not only how many new ones, but how high they were ranked. Like the Lido in Wisconsin debuted at number 30. Old Barnwell in Aiken, South Carolina debuted around 50, 51. So that's kind of surprising. That's impressive. It's not unprecedented, but it's very impressive to me. And that's really what caught my eye.
And Rob, I think we'll talk about why that might happen, why courses might debut so high later on in the podcast. But I do think, too, it shows, unlike other types of media, other types of art, golf courses evolve and golf courses change over time. And I think it's interesting that you see so many courses show up right at the top of the list so early, a lot of them before they've even finished growing in or becoming what you might consider a finished product. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as some of the other courses that might have debuted at, in the top 100 5 years ago, we're already starting to see them fall off. So I think that was one of my surprises to just see courses like Congaree, courses like the Sheep Ranch or Sand Valley fall off so soon after their opening. you would think that the course hasn't gotten markedly worse in that time. So does that mean that other courses have just caught up, or does it mean that a course that we thought was a top 100 course 5 years ago, maybe our estimation has changed as we've gotten more familiar with it, as more people have played it? I think just a couple other courses that I found a little bit interesting. Trinity Forest makes a new entry on the list. I don't typically see it on top 100 tip lists, and in my opinion, at least, it sort of gets the benefit of the doubt. If we're talking about new architects or modern architects that typically show up on these lists, you talk about Tom Doak, you talk about Gil Hance, or you talk about Coore and Crenshaw. In this case, I think Coore and Crenshaw might get a little bit of favorability. And personally, there are about 7 other Coore and Crenshaw courses that I'd favor for a list like this over Trinity. I think it's the first time I've seen Sankaty Head on at number 92 in a list of this caliber. That's almost the opposite. Completely unknown architect in Nantucket, in Massachusetts. I haven't played it, but it looks really cool. And that's one where it's just a surprise to see because I haven't seen it on a list like this. And then I think one more at 69, Harbour Town. This is a course that's been on the list before, but it just is interesting to see it functionally as the 12th best public course in the country if you sort of take out the private courses on this list. Usually when you see a top 100 public course list, it's in the 20s to 30s, but Golf Magazine sees it as 12. So I just find that interesting.
Yeah, I think just commenting on some of the courses Jake brought up, Harbour Town is one of those courses where I would not put it in my personal top 100, but keep in mind who's doing the ratings for Golf Magazine. I mean, there are a lot of architects that are involved in it. And Harbour Town and TPC Sawgrass are 2 Pete Dye courses that most raters by today's standards kind of, look the other way at because they're so contrived and manufactured. But a lot of architects like Doak and Hands and Kyle Franz point to Harbour Town as something, and TPC Sawgrass as something that really influenced the way they do things. So this list, there are 4 architects I point to that kind of fell off a little bit. You look at Tom Fazio. There are a number of courses not on this list, like you said, Congaree, Victoria National, Dallas National, Spring Hill in Minnesota, the Quarry out in La Quinta, Diamond Creek in North Carolina, Hudson National, Estancia, Alotian Club, Shooting Star. I could go on and on at the number of Tom Fazio courses on other top 100 lists that didn't crack this one. Jack Nicklaus, no Castle Pines, no Sabonic, no Valhalla. Pete Dye, no Pete Dye Golf Club in West Virginia, no Oak Tree National in Oklahoma, no Crooked Stick in Indiana, and then the Jones family, no Spyglass Hill, no Hazeltine. Peachtree is on the list, but no Chambers Bay, none of the other ones that you'd think about. So there really seems to be, in my mind, I don't want to say a bias, but taste change. We could say it's a taste change of courses built between the 60s and early 2000s, the Pete Dye era, the Jack Nicklaus era, the Jones era. Those are sort of starting to fall out of favor for the more modern designs that are kind of a throwback to the minimalist era of the 20s and 30s. So that's really something that's consistent across lists. It's just really, really dramatic on this one.
I want to add that, I'm biased because I live in Oklahoma, but to have Oak Tree National not on the list to me is criminal. This is a course that there are, I think, 24 tour pros that are members at Oak Tree National. They're there for a reason. They choose to be at Oak Tree National for a reason because it's such a demanding golf course that prepares them for play on either the Live Tour, the PGA Tour, or the Champions Tour. So I was surprised not to see that. But I want to ask you guys, do you think that a brand new golf course deserves to be on a top 100 list? Because it really hasn't withheld the test of time yet. It's only been open for a short period. How long do you think a course should be open and experienced by a lot of people before it makes its way onto a list of this nature?
I can start off there because I've got a pretty cut and dry answer myself. I always say if you're going to put a course on a rankings list before it's been open for 5 years for general play, I think that that's too soon. I think it's a couple things, right? I already mentioned that a course changes as it grows in. The course that, I know Rob played a course for preview play a couple of days ago. That course isn't going to be the same 6 months from now when it opens to its members or later than that as it is today. I think the other thing is when you put a course on a list so soon, it creates the ability for the first few people, the first few golf raters that go out to see it, gives them sort of the ability to create a narrative and set an expectation that, okay, Caprock Ranch is a top 100 in the world course, or, I'm trying to think of a couple of the other new ones you mentioned, like the Lido is automatically a top 100 in the world course. And maybe it is, but how can you really say that if you're the first one to have been there and you haven't gotten sort of a wide range of golfers and a wide range of playing abilities out there to see it?
I mean, I completely agree with that. I think that I don't know what the specific age limit is, but I mean, just for example, the course I played the other day, Broom Sedge, it's brand new in South Carolina. It's going to take 18 to 24 months just for the broom sedge, which is its name, to grow in. It's a plant. And it's such a huge feature of the course. And it really affects on a lot of the landscape, the erosion of whether or not the course holds up. It's going to look completely different. And so aesthetics goes into some of the rankings, depending upon which list you go into. On Golf Digest, like how aesthetically pleasing the overall experience is, regardless of the genre of the course, whether it's supposed to be beautiful and perfect like Shadow Creek or Augusta National, or sort of rough and rugged like a Pine Valley. There's no way to know really how Broom Sedge is going to turn out until you give it a little bit of time. The other thing that's important on these lists is what you value in architecture. So if you value difficulty, and you value how this course is going to hold up to the very best golfers, then it is criminal that an Oak Tree National drops out, because part of what makes Oak Tree National great is it demands a lot more from you than a typical golf course. Some would argue, you know what? You don't have to be a great golfer to appreciate great golf. So for me, like Bethpage Black, I really have to focus my energy to rate it where it belongs to be, because it's so difficult. It requires a lot of shots that, I'm a +2 handicap, and it requires shots that I do not have. I do not have the high soft 220-yard butter cut into a back right pin up a hill. And if it's in the rough, it's a 3-shot hole now, because there's just no point in me trying to hit a hybrid or a 3-wood there, right? Does that make it worse because I don't have that shot? That's part of the debate. Then you take other courses, like I'm going to pull out a name that's not on any of these lists. Linville Golf Club in Linville, North Carolina. It's an old Donald Ross course built with mules pulling drag pans, and they threw down sticks of dynamite wherever they wanted a bunker. It is one of my favorite places to play. Nothing about it appears to be overly challenging, but I will shoot no lower on that course than I would on Oak Tree National. And it's just because it's just such a good design. It's such a classic design. And it's challenging for the good player, and it's playable for the high handicapper. That's great architecture. So I don't think you need to be a pro golfer or a scratch golfer to appreciate good architecture. But I do think that there are those certain courses that deserve to be where they are, partially because they are great tests of golf, like Pine Valley. Most average golfers would have a miserable time at Pine Valley. If you have trouble with forced carries or you hit it a little bit sideways, you can't finish the hole, right? So, but, if you're pretty good, God, it's a special day, right? You just played it, Matt. I mean, it's tough to beat.
I would argue, too, that there can be extra points given for a course that is a great test of golf, but that shouldn't be a sort of an additive criteria, right? Because you can create a really tough test of golf without creating a good golf course. And I think when you talk about Pine Valley, there's an example of a course that is both a great test of golf, but it is a compelling test of sort of the mental game. It is a compelling golf architecture piece. If you just want a list of the hardest golf courses, That's what I think Golf Digest used to do in the 70s or so. And I think of a course that was on one of Minnesota's hardest golf course lists because it's in my family's hometown. And sure, it's like a 75 course rating or something. That doesn't make it a great course. It just means that there's trees everywhere, there's water everywhere, you can lose 10 balls. I think you can have great courses where that is part of the challenge, but I don't think that just having that challenge necessarily creates a great golf course. And you have to be careful about that when you rate.
And I think that's part of what's hurting the Jack Nicklaus, Pete Dye, Trent Jones crew, which is because in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, developers wanted them to build really tough courses. So like Trent Jones Sr. and Reese Jones, they were nicknamed the Open Doctors. So if a course was about to host a U.S. Open 3 years out, like let's say Oakland Hills in Michigan, they would bring in Robert Trent Jones or Reese Jones. Congressional brought in Reese Jones, and they'd say, we don't want these pros to come here and embarrass our club. Make this place hard. So what they do, they narrowed the fairways, they grew the rough, they pinched the landing areas at 300 yards or 320 yards with pot bunkers. They brought up the green speeds that really don't match the old contours. They're a little too quick. Make them firm. And yeah, you made a really hard course. Those guys are taking a hit on the modern list now, largely because they built really hard golf courses. And I think there's a bias right now toward going out and having a great time. So a lot of the new clubs I'm seeing, like Old Barnwell, Tree Farm, a Hoopie Match Club, etc., there's no premium anymore on hitting your driver straight, on being able to hit a cut, a draw, high, low, etc. They're giving you wide open fairways. Like think about St. Patrick's that we played in Ireland. You know, that is exhibit A of what is becoming more popular. Give them room off the tee. Then you get up around the greens and you have closely mown areas all the way around it. It's tough maybe to score for a better player, but it gives the lower handicap more of a chance than having to hack it out of the rough or a pot bunker, etc. So I think you're starting to see that. And who knows? I mean, 20 years from now, people might be restoring Pete Dye's and saying, hey, let's go back to this. You know, we're tired of the minimalist movement for now. I don't know. But what I do know right now is that you look at these courses, you got a lot of coastal courses and a lot of courses built on sand-based soil. And there are very few sand ridges throughout the U.S. The Pinehurst area in North Carolina, down into like Aiken and Camden, South Carolina, where I just was, great sandy soil. It drains well, the ball bounces, you can play lots of contours, a lot of different variety. Long Island, the Hamptons, 20 phenomenal courses in one stretch. Monterey Peninsula, Pebble Beach, Cypress Point, Spyglass Hill, MPCC, all of those. Bandon Dunes. So those are getting a bias towards a lot of the inland parkland courses.
And Rob, I just want to draw a quick distinction because you talk about those courses where driver maybe not, being able to hit a driver straight, being able to bend the ball the right direction. Courses where that's not the focus sort of being in vogue right now. But I think if you look at this list, you don't necessarily see that that's what's favored, because I think a lot of the old classic courses that do really well in this type of ranking, you actually see they are courses that, you're not getting 60, 70-yard fairways to hit to. If I think about some of the older Ross courses on this list, if I think about, the 20 courses on Long Island in New York, they're not necessarily places that are known for letting you spray driver, which is why I think you have to ask the trend that's popular right now, like, is that going to be something we look back on fondly 20 years from now, or is that something where we say, almost like we're saying to some Jones courses right now, it was a period of time where that was sort of what developers wanted, what golfers wanted, but ultimately we're going back to revise some of those courses to make them maybe more classically sound, and really to put some playing value back into some of these courses, because I think I like width a little bit more than you do. Maybe I don't hit the ball as straight as you do, but I see a course like Mammoth Dunes in Wisconsin or something like that, where you can pretty much hit your drive anywhere in a 100-yard radius, and you can find that ball and hit it to the green. So I just want to draw a distinction between, what shows up on this list as an old classic golf course and some of the new entries that are showing up high.
My only care in golf architecture going forward is to punish Matt Parker.
Yeah.
And I want lots of wind. I want big sand dunes. I want tree-lined fairways. I mean, I want to take driver out of Matt's hand because he hits it 350 yards. Not kidding you, 350 yards. But you really want to get it up in the wind spinning. You really want to get it, going off the
I think we just cut like a strike through a forest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's back up for a second. Jake, can you explain what it means to be a golf course rater? What kind of work goes into rating a golf course? And talk about your experience. Rob, you can add in your experience as well of rating golf courses.
Yeah, I would say really the goal of these golf rating panels is to put together a group of well-educated golfers from around the country and in some cases around the world, so that they can put together an appropriate list of the best golf courses in the world. And ultimately, each magazine sort of has their own goals as they build their panels. I think you see that recently, in the last 5 to 10 years, Golf Magazine has really focused on putting together a well-traveled and well-respected group of sort of golf insiders, people who tend to favor maybe more classical golf courses, people who revere some of the old architects, your Donald Rosses, your Tillinghast, your Rayners, all the people that Rob's already mentioned, and people who are very well represented on this list. I think each panel sort of has its own maybe personality, or at least stereotype personality that's built up through the years. And, Rob is a very good golfer. It fits that he used to be on the Golf Digest panel. That panel typically has a reputation for having good players, people who generally like those more difficult courses, maybe more of your Oak Tree National, those longer Jones-style courses. And Golf Week generally, I'd say, cuts it sort of down the middle in terms of people who have a wide range of playing abilities, people who cover a wide range of ages, people who care for a lot of different types of golf course architecture. As far as the process, it really is as simple as just going out and playing golf courses and educating yourself on what makes a good golf course, what is sound golf course architecture. I would say that people on the outside generally have maybe an elevated perception of what it takes or what a golf course rating panel consists of. It's really just normal guys like us who like to play a lot of golf and see a lot of cool places.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are a couple key things that are important for anybody who is rating. One, I go out of my way mentally to ignore, how beautiful the clubhouse is, how great the practice facilities are, how exclusive it is, how hard it is to get the tee time, how I play personally. Those are all things that you really need to separate, there. Like, it's easy to pull into Seminole and be excited because it's a hard tee time to get, right? It's typically ranked in the top 15 in the country. It's incredibly exclusive. They have one of the best locker rooms. They had a swimming pool outside the locker room once that nobody has ever swam at, right? So you have to push all of that aside, just the same way pulling into Oakmont and looking in the trophy case and seeing 9 or 10 US Open trophies in there. That should have no bearing on your rating, the same way as going out there and not feeling well or playing like shit. If I have a bad day, that has no bearing on how that course is. And there are a number of courses. I mentioned Bethpage Black. Yeah, I rated in the top 100. I hate playing it. I honestly hate playing it.
And Rob, I just think that gets to a deeper point, which is that people in general are really bad at tuning out those sort of things. We all have these cognitive biases built in. And that's why I encourage anyone listening to use this list as guidance, but look at it with a critical eye, because everyone who's going out and rating golf courses is prone to the same cognitive bias as you are. They love it if there's a great clubhouse. They love it if they shoot their career best. And we all, try in our own way to put that out of our head. But my personal perception, at least, is that a lot of golf course raters are very bad at doing this, and it probably influences the way these lists come up.
in this golf magazine list, they're putting courses into buckets. So say I think this course is an A, a B, or I think this is a top 20 course, a top 40, a top 60, a top 80, yada, yada, yada. And they're putting them in those buckets. Other raters for, say Golf Digest, you're rating out of 10 points and you have different sections. Like you're rating the aesthetics, you're rating consistency of like the green complexes,
resistance to scoring,
rate, options and variety, etc. So when you're rating on a specific scale, then yeah, you're looking at those individual things and nothing else. One of my frustrations with doing that is now that I've kind of played most of the places I want to play in the US, I'm now searching for hidden gems that I hadn't really thought of when I was chasing the list, and I'm wanting to play more and more overseas. But when I think about where I want to go back, that changes my list, because there are courses I have ranked in my top 25 or 30 that I don't care if I ever play again, honestly. And then there are ones that aren't even in my top 100 that I'd go back to tomorrow. And so for me now, it's more about the day. It's about, how you feel from the time you pull in to when you leave, the overall experience, which isn't really rating the course. So like, if I had a choice between taking you two guys to go play Stock Farm Club in Montana or the Boot Ranch in Texas, I would do that before going and playing some of these courses that are ranked between 80 and 100 that are on there because a couple of snooty raters like me and Jake thought that it hit 9.3 out of 10 or 7.6 out of 10 based on their bunkers, their greens, you get people down to, I've played with raters at RTJ who were like, oh, I think you guys have too many dogleg rights. And I would tell them, we have the same number of dogleg rights as dogleg lefts as holes that go straight. We have the same number of holes where the approach shot is uphill, downhill, or flat. And then he says, well, I love the 18th hole, but I don't like how it finishes into the sunset. I don't think great golf courses should finish facing west. I'm like, what kind of bullshit is that? Look at Pebble Beach, you dumbass. It's the greatest closing hole. It's the greatest closing hole in golf, arguably.
I think that's why my club fell 15 spots this time. They realized the 18th hole faces west.
Exactly. Yeah.
Probably that's it.
So you get some of these raters that create their own rules. Like I played with somebody who said, the first hole is supposed to be an opening handshake, and it's supposed to get you off with an easy par, a birdie chance, and start the round. Somebody attributed that to Donald Ross, and maybe that's true. A lot of Donald Ross courses have an easy-ish opening hole. White Bear Yacht Club, I think, has a tough opening hole. I could name Oakmont has a tough opening hole. One of the toughest ranked holes at Augusta is number 1. I could go down the list and break that rule. So I really get frustrated with some of the raters that have these hard and fast rules. The course I played the other day has 3 sets of 4 holes that go back and forth. And while I was playing them, I was being critical in my head of what a lazy, unoriginal routing. But then I went through it again, like over the last couple of days, and I started thinking, you know what? Each of those holes was great. I didn't have like a problem with any of those individual golf holes. So was the routing particularly unique? No, but all 18 of the holes were really good. So I'm not necessarily going to I wouldn't punish that course strictly because I tend not to like courses that go back and forth. I just don't.
The heart of the matter, right, is that there are so few hard and fast rules in golf course architecture, and so few hard and fast rules in what makes a great golf course. You look at a place like Cypress Point, it breaks pretty much all of those rules, back-to-back par 3s, back-to-back par 5s, things like that why do we have to hold ourselves to hard and fast rules when we rate those golf courses?
I totally agree. Now, that leads to a question. Do you guys think that these lists are good for golf or bad for golf?
I think
Well, Rob, do you want to take the good or the bad first?
I'll take the bad first.
Okay, I like that.
I'll take the bad first. Look, I think that a lot of these lists are very private, expensive clubs that most golfers who buy Golf Digest or Golf Magazine or who read Golf Week probably are going to have trouble getting on and playing unless they're already a member at a private club that has a pro shop willing to make phone calls for them, and they've start to build a professional network that gets you on these. Because really the key to playing these, if you're not a rater and you're not a member at a top 100 golf club, I mean, you kind of have to get lucky and know somebody who knows somebody. And then once you play like a critical mass of them, then like I would tell people, yeah, I'm trying to play the top 100. And they'd be like, what are you missing? And I'd say, Milwaukee Country Club and Chicago Golf Club. And then they'd open up their phone and say, hey, I know members at both. I'll get you set up. But the barrier to entry is high. The other thing that I think is the cost of the game. A lot of greens committees and agronomy teams at these clubs are chasing these lists because it's important to the members. And they're spending millions of dollars making sure that the conditioning is great all the time, making sure that, they're adding length to the course, moving the bunkers so that they're in the correct spot, all great things in some ways. But they're spending a fortune chasing these lists. And does it really matter if you're number 103 versus number 89? I would argue against some of their positions that, if we're on this list, more people are going to want to play the course. More people are going to want to join it. Well, I don't think you really see that much of a bounce on that. You might get an increase in a couple of national members, but typically if you're one of the best clubs in your region, you already have either a waiting list or people trying to get on. If Southern Hills across the street from you, they host a U.S. Open, they already have a wait list. Like having
I'm on it.
Yeah. Having another U.S. Open isn't going to change the math or the formula at Southern Hills. It's not going to make it a better or worse golf course. So I guess the negatives would be access, barriers to entry, and driving up the cost for the membership. The same argument could be made for hosting tournaments. At RTJ, I can't go into too many of the specifics. I'll get yelled at, but I won't get yelled at. They'll just be like, why the hell did you say that on a public setting? We hosted the first 4 President's Cups, and we, on balance, broke even. Any money that came in from the tournament, we essentially spent updating and preparing the course. We had Tiger Woods' tournament in 2015. 2 years before, we redid all of our bunkers. We changed some of the tee boxes. We did some tree removal. So any money we made from the event, we basically spent preparing for it. You lose your course for a couple weeks. We've lengthened our course. Fortunately, it doesn't seem awkward. Or like some courses, they try to chase distance and it doesn't fit. We've spent a lot of money, and you can stretch the course out well over 7,500 yards. Nobody plays it from 7,500 yards. So we're taking care of dozens of acres of land that we're punching, using fertilizer, watering, mowing every week that nobody's really using. We took out trees to build tee boxes that nobody uses. We have an event, on average once every 5 years. We already have a wait list. So it's not really changing the math for us. What the members are spending for pro golfers to come play our course 1 week every 5 years is insane. It's mostly just ego. It's fun to host tour players. It's fun to see your course on TV. It's fun to be on these lists. So with that, I'll have Jake take the pros.
You kind of, you can't take all the negatives away from me. I get a shot at that too. If there's one thing I can do, it's, talk crap about golf courses. But I think you kind of stole the point I was going to make right at the end, which is that it's not about, the membership thinking that getting a pro event's going to boost membership or make a ton of money, right? So ultimately, what's it about? Like, people that build golf courses, people that belong to exclusive public golf or private golf courses, they're probably like a little bit egotistical, and they probably like to see their names like way up on these lists. And ultimately, like, is that a double-edged sword? Yes, because we get really great golf courses. I think you see the difference between the quality of renovation that's being done in America right now versus the entire rest of the world. And you see what that money's producing. Maybe it's not always well spent, but it's producing very good golf courses. On the other hand, they're spending a ton of money. As Rob sort of hit on, they're creating an environmental impact, if they're maintaining acreage that they otherwise won't have to. We'll get to the politics later. I'm the farthest thing from a socialist, but my socialist case for golf course renovation, who am I to tell the rich people of my area not to support the local economy and, pump $40 million into their golf course, even if that only bumps them 5-10 spots up the rankings. So I think there's both a good and a bad in there. I think as far as what my attempt at a positive is, besides getting really good golf courses, I think these lists ultimately are a way of introducing people to what are the great places that golf can take me. As a kid, the course that you play at, probably a crappy muni somewhere or something like that. You probably know, Cypress Point or Pebble Beach or 5 or 10 great golf courses that people talk about as the pinnacle of the game. But there are so many other great places that golf can take you. I know between Rob and I and you, Matt, it's been probably thousands at this point. And I think these lists are great at introducing people to, you can go to Monterey and see Cypress and Pebble, but there are great golf courses in every state in the country. There are great golf courses in probably 50 countries worldwide. And I think these lists are great at introducing people to that next tier beyond the one place that my dad knows and all these other great places that you'd love to see someday.
Well, and I think I also would compare the United States to Ireland and Scotland, both pros and cons similarly. Because if you look at these lists, and if you take the world list, this is just the United States, pretty much if you cross off all the ones on the US list that make the world list, and then you add in Ireland, Scotland, England, and then Australia, you're at 80% of the courses right there. I think the United States has collectively the most great golf courses of anybody and is probably the worst on the per capita basis. So we have 17,000 golf courses in the United States. The top 1% would be the top 170. And those top 170 are phenomenal. No other country on earth has a top 170 like we have, with as much diversity as there are, whether it's going out and playing the Quarry in La Quinta, playing Southern Hills, playing up in Minnesota at Interlachen or Minnetonka, White Bear, or around here with Congo and RTJ, and etc. We have every kind of golf course imaginable. And we have, I think there's probably 20 to 30, but there's probably only 20 to 30 great publicly accessible courses. Your Pebble Beaches, your Bandon Dunes, Kiowa Ocean, the Sand Valley Resort, Stream Song. It's pretty limited. I give the United States, on our number of golf courses, for great private clubs, we're an A+. For great public courses, we're an F, as far as accessibility and cost.
Can you really call Pebble Beach accessible as well? I mean, when you think about for the average person, they can't afford to go there.
Right. Yeah. I took my dad for his 60th birthday. It was either his 60th birthday or his retirement gift. And that weekend cost $10,000. He would have never been able to do that on his own. I was able to do it. Very few people can. You go to Ireland or Scotland, you can play the best 30 golf courses in both countries, no problem. And for not that much money, right? They get an A+ on number of great courses per capita and accessibility. part of that is the linksland is just terrific right along the sea. You get the sandy soils, the bluffs, the natural dunes. That's amazing. But in the U.S., we could learn a lot from them, and I think we're starting to get there. Golf course construction, the cost is starting to drop, but the initiations, the dues, the greens fees, even for public courses, is outrageous.
Can I use that as another con to these lists potentially? Is you say that it's starting to turn. I'm not quite so sure that that's true if we're talking about both costs and accessibility. So much of the golf development is happening, and right, we should be glad that it is happening because for the last 15 years, 20 years, it hasn't been. But at the same time, it's a lot of private clubs that are shooting for these type of lists or for very, high-end, expensive memberships, or it's public courses that are trying to be on these lists. If you think about the courses that 99% of golfers play, your municipals, even your well-designed municipals or public courses around their city, those courses aren't getting built anymore. And you could argue that maybe there's just not an economic case for it. But at the same time, I hear from people that play primarily public golf, tee times are getting more expensive everywhere. Tee times are 8 minutes apart to 6 minutes apart in some cities. So you can say that, development as a whole is starting to take a turn for the positive, and I think that's a good thing. At the same time, that's really only affecting those courses that we're already calling inaccessible or overly costly.
That's right.
Can I change gears here for a second? And this is not a question that was on our initial list for you guys, but I think it would be helpful for our listeners because I believe that the average golfer, when they think of Augusta National, they think this is the number one golf course in the world. There's nothing even close to it. It never ranks number one on any of these lists. Can you guys give a case on why it's not number one to maybe understand what goes into some of the ratings?
Well, you managed to push my only sensitive button. It's the only one of the top 100 I have not played. I have walked it several times. I've been to the Masters 3 times, and it's spectacular. I would blame Augusta National in one way for driving up costs in golf, because for 40 years, everybody has tried to emulate Augusta as far as in perfectly maintaining courses. I think it's driven up the costs of watering golf courses, fertilizing them, maintaining green speeds that are, firm greens that are fast and healthy all year is very expensive, particularly in parts of the country like where I live in the mid-Atlantic, where, we just don't have a long grass growing season. We have a long golf season, but we have brutal weather in the summer. And if you take a divot at a course here in July, it takes 2 months to regrow that grass. So for us to stay in pristine shape all year, like Augusta National, it costs millions and millions of dollars. Go up on that number. I can't give you our budget, but go up. That's because I think of what Augusta National did to generations of private membership golfers. They expect it. If they see brown spots, they think brown is bad. Brown can be good. Brown means firm and fast. Brown means the contours are relevant. There's nothing more I hate playing than a course where you bust a drive down the middle and it hits and sticks. And then you're trying to hit a contour on the green and it hits and sticks. Like, that's no fun. That's not golf. That sucks. And I think Augusta has led to a lot of that. Not that Augusta plays that way. Of course it does not. Because they have a grounds team of over 45 full-time agronomists who are the best in their field. They just lost 1,500 trees. My caddy 2 days ago is a caddy at Augusta National, and he said they lost 1,500 trees. And they're not going to replant little saplings. They're going to bring in on like a crane, fully grown pines and replant them, right? One interesting thing I heard from a PGA Tour pro I got to play with several years ago, he made an interesting observation. He said, if Augusta National was built today and we hosted a major championship on it, the pros would do nothing but bitch about it. How hilly it is, how crazy the greens are. He said they would hate it, but they love it because we all grew up watching it on TV. We all know what to expect. We all know every shot. We all know every Tiger Woods magical shot, every Phil Mickelson shot. We've seen the highlights of Jack. I don't remember Jack's victory in 1986, but I feel like I do because I've seen it on YouTube. So we all have this affinity for Augusta National, but having walked it 3 times and having played Pine Valley every year, it's not a close call. Like, in my opinion, as far as variety, options, resistance to par.
Rob, I think you brought up an interesting point, which is we all have these memories of Augusta. And Matt, I totally understand why you asked the question, because for so many people, Augusta is like the pinnacle. At the same time, I wonder if we should be asking, is Augusta higher than it should be, because we all associate these positive memories with Augusta. I'm in Rob's camp. I haven't played there. And Rob, I wonder if this carries any weight with you. But for me, the difference between all the courses around Augusta on this list and Augusta is that all of the works around it have been respected throughout their history. People have tried to maintain the original intent, whereas Augusta has been so changed and altered over the years. And you can say, like, that's meant to improve the course and make it better but I think for each of those improvements, it's not how can we make this a better course. It's usually how can we make this harder for players at the Masters. And I think what you lose there too is a sort of architectural like verisimilitude over time, where like this isn't an Alister MacKenzie course or a Bobby Jones course by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a Perry Maxwell course from the work that he did in the 50s. It's not a Fazio course or a George Cobb course. It's this child of all of them. And maybe while that's not a bad thing necessarily, it also doesn't create this same sort of composition that you get at a Pine Valley or at a Cypress Point or at something like that.
Yeah, and I think, I put Augusta National and Muirfield Village in that category. I think Augusta National and Muirfield Village are both ranked higher than they otherwise would be because we all grew up watching the Memorial in Columbus and the Masters. And I think they're, if it wasn't for Jack Nicklaus and the Memorial, would Muirfield Village be ranked in the top 20 on some of these
Probably not
lists?
the best golf course in Columbus.
It's not. Like, it's not the best golf course in Columbus. It's really good, and it's a top 100 golf course.
Rob, seeing that it's fallen to 56 on this list, I'm not sure it's the case in point that we want to be making.
Right, yeah. So I think that, if you take Augusta National, would you ever restore it to what it was in the 1930s? Of course not, because like Muirfield Village for the Memorial, Augusta National exists for the Masters. That is why it's there. Like, would you flip the nines back to the original nines? It used to be the back nine was the front. Well, you would have no Amen Corner. We know of Amen Corner because we watched Sunday at the Masters. There didn't used to be a pond short left of 11. Well, that kind of makes the hole, and it's dramatic. 16, the par 3, Robert Trent Jones Sr. built that. It originally was a 110-yard par 3 over a creek. It'd be a lob wedge today. And now it's interesting because these guys can make holes in one. They can put it in the bunker. They can knock it stiff. They can go long and have the Tiger Woods Nike shot. They can put it in the drink. So it's exciting. Would you go back to the 110-yard chip shot over the creek, even though that's what Alister MacKenzie put there? No, you wouldn't. And number 13, they're trying to keep that hole relevant. Arguably the best par 5 in the world, at least top 10 par 5 in the world. Do you want Bryson DeChambeau hitting gap wedge into it? No. So they bought for millions of dollars an extra 12 acres from neighboring Augusta Country Club. They've moved the tee back 30 yards. I don't know, whatever the hell it is. And now it makes Rory and Bryson and those guys have to think. That's why that course exists today. It's for the Masters. It's for that 1 week a year. And you would never do a full quote unquote restoration because it would make the course obsolete.
And to be clear, Rob, I'm not saying that if they were to bring it back to 1932 that all of a sudden it'd be at the top of this list. Like, I'm saying all that work has brought it further up the list, but at a certain point, like, a course has reached the level it's going to get to. And when you've got all these great courses, you're splitting hairs to such a degree that the difference between Pine Valley and Augusta and even like Chicago Golf Club is so minuscule that, you know, it's splitting hairs.
But I've talked to my friend Jeff Shackelford about Augusta, and he said that all the tree planting they've done there and tiger proofing with the first cut, it didn't used to have rough. They have a first cut, and they have all the trees. He said he argues, and I think correctly, that it's taken away the charm of Augusta and the intent of the greens that are built because it removes the angles. And so the angles are relevant for us because we're coming into those greens with 7 irons or 6 irons. And if you get out of place off the tee and you're too far left, there are some pins you can't get to with that club. But angles are obsolete when your club head speed's 135, you're hitting it 120 feet in the air, and your approach shot from 170 is with a 9 iron. Angles don't matter anymore. So there's no way for Augusta National to defend itself from the best players in the world today without the trees, without the rough. And does it get rid of the character and the original intent? Of course. But they have a course that is designed right now for the best golfers in the world, and they don't want them shooting 40 under par.
We'll move on, but I would argue that one thing that impressed me about Pine Valley, it doesn't strike me as a course that anybody can overpower. It's just not possible to overpower. Like, there's only a certain place you can hit the ball, and it creates a golf that withstands the test of time, in my opinion. I mean, I hit driver one time in 18 holes. No, we weren't playing the tips, but nevertheless, like, it was all about placement golf all day long. But anyway, let's move on.
Trusting your swing. Every hole at Pine Valley looks scarier than it is. And so when you're on the tee box, you pick your line and you fucking commit.
That's
you
right.
Commit.
Yeah, that's right.
And Jordan, stop bleeping out my F words. Our producer, Jordan, I occasionally use language that he bleeps out. And so I'm just going to slip in as many F words as I can and see if I can get any by them.
Rob, there are children listening to this fucking podcast.
All right, so let's move on here. Give me each 2 courses that you don't believe belong on this list and 2 courses that should be on the list.
I'll start with what I would take off. Trinity Forest in Texas, mostly because I could tell you 5 other Core Crenshaw courses alone I would put ahead of it. I could tell you a few courses in Texas alone I would put ahead of it, let alone the rest of the country. And then the other is Harbor Town. My late father loved Harbor Town, so it kills me to take Harbor Town off the list. And I love Pete Dye, but I just hate that golf course. I know there are people that know a lot about architecture that emulate different aspects of it. You talk about width, it has no width. Like, this thing is just shoots, just nothing but shoots. And I like trees. I'm not opposed to trees coming into play, but like, they're all in play, like even on good tee shots. Like, that course is designed for people that hit it poker straight. I hit the ball straight, and I don't hit it straight enough for Harbor Town. So I would take Harbor Town off the list. And then the third one is a tie. I'm adding a third. St. Louis Country Club, I think it's really good. Seth Rayner, but they're already like a dozen Seth Rayners if you count the CB McDonald's too. And there are Seth Rayners that I think are better than St. Louis that aren't even on the list. So there could be a little bit of overkill on that front. And then Newport Country Club, I love it. Absolutely love the place. Love everything about it. Would play it anytime anyone invited me. Was just there a few months ago. It's not one of the 100 best golf courses in America. It's just not. Is it one of the 100 most iconic as far as clubhouses and settings and yes. Is it one of the 100 best golf courses? No.
I'm going to remove Trinity. It's not controversial to take the 100 course off the list, but I don't think Gamble Sands is a top 100 golf course. To say something actually sort of controversial, maybe I think Pebble, while I wouldn't take it off this list by any means, it's way too high. It's another course like Augusta that's been changed so much down the years. I don't think it resembles its initial intent. And on my personal list, I have Ballyneal ahead of it, which is number 35 on this list. So if you told me Pebble was actually the 50th best course in America, I'd be like, okay, I can get behind that. I think it gets a lot for having the U.S. Open and for having great views. Would I go there
when Rob and I were in Ireland?
Yeah.
I told Rob when we were in Ireland, there were at least 3 courses in Ireland that I'd much rather play than Pebble Beach that we played on our last trip. Not that it's a bad course. It's a fantastic golf course. It's just, I think it's overrated
To add
as
a
well.
separate point, I think that it is probably the number 1 remaining candidate in America. Maybe Spyglass is also on this list for a major renovation to improve the golf course. It just will never get it because of who is in charge.
Yeah, the people in charge don't value the history of it. It needs to be more dunesy, the older 1920s style look. And all the current management there cares about is pumping through as many $700 rounds in a day as they can.
Which you get. You would.
Yeah. I mean, hell yeah, I would. But if they were to get the restoration they needed, Pebble Beach and Spyglass would skyrocket and be where they deserve to be.
All right, each of you give me 3 hidden gems that will never make a list like this that our listeners need to go play.
Matt, we still get to add some courses that would make this list.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah. Go ahead.
We forgot to do that part.
Yeah,
with
let's
all
do
of our
that real quick.
negativity that we bring. For me, easy one, again, will never get on this. I mean, maybe Golf Magazine will put it on their list, but 9-holers never get the love they deserve. Culver Academies is a top 100 golf course in the world. If there were 18 holes there, it would be on this list. It's in northern Indiana, about an hour and a half north of Indianapolis at a military academy. Wonderful 9-hole Langford and Moreau golf course.
I had multiple friends in college that went to Culver for boarding school.
For military or for high school.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I knew quite a few myself, and I just think it's a fantastic golf course. They originally intended to build 27, but I think because of the war or maybe the Great Depression, they only got to build 9. If it was a 27-hole golf course, it would be on this list and it wouldn't be close. A couple others, there's a theme here. My Midwest isn't getting the love it deserves. Harvester Club in Iowa. This is a personal take, but I think it is top 100, and every hole between 2 and 17 is just fabulous. And then Chicago, Illinois, Beverly Golf Club. It's close as to whether it should be on this list, but it feels so Chicago. It's so wonderful. It's a great experience. And with a newly restored Donald Ross golf course, I think it should be on this list.
Okay, I will add Colorado Golf Club, a Core Crenshaw, in Denver, outside of Denver. Really challenging, but fun to play. Absolutely stunning. How that's not on every top 100 list is beyond me. I think it's the best course in Denver. I love Cherry Hills, but Colorado Golf Club, outstanding. I'm going to throw a Muni on there just because I feel like we need a Muni. I love the park in West Palm Beach. I was down there for 6 weeks over the winter, commuting to DC as needed. Congress wasn't doing much, so neither was I. But the park is really, really good. And then I'm going to throw in some hidden gems. I don't even want to call them hidden gems. Yeah, we'll call them hidden gems. Bitterman Golf Club in Wilmington. It's an old DuPont stomping grounds, the Sharon Golf Club in Ohio. It is just outside of like Akron and Canton. I played that for the first time this year and thought it was spectacular. Beverly in Chicago, which was also on Jake's list, outstanding. Linville Golf Club, which I referenced earlier. It's just, if that's not one of the 100 best golf courses in the United States, you know, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then a few others that I would put on the bubble as far as new courses, the Tree Farm in South Carolina. There's a lot of new builds down there. The Tree Farm's the best of the bunch. I think a Hoopy Match Club's overrated. I think Old Barnwell's overrated. I like Tree Farm better than the bunch down there. And then if I had to throw in one more that I really like that's not on any lists, I would say Black Sheep in Chicago. It's a 27-hole course there. And funny story about Black Sheep. It is a men's-only club. They have never had a lady step foot on the property until this summer when the owner died and his wife found out she had inherited a men's-only golf club. And now a men's-only club is owned by a woman. And as a Democrat, I appreciate that. I think that's hilarious. I'm 100% for it. And I hope she, screws with some traditions. I hope that she makes the place smell nicer. I don't know.
Screw with tradition. The place opened in like 2005.
Yeah.
It's not that entrenched at this point.
Yeah,
but I love that list. There's some good stuff on that. I second. If you like a great hang, the park is a phenomenal hang. A couple more hidden gems I'll throw on. In the Berkshires in Massachusetts, Taconic at Williams College is a fantastic golf course. No one's played Styles and Van Cleet courses, but this is probably one of the best of them. Gil Hance recently did a renovation, and it's just smooth. You're in the mountains. It's beautiful. You're not in the mountains, but you climb the mountain at Northland in Duluth, Minnesota. Minnesotans know about this place. No one else does. But Donald Ross on a little hillside, you climb up, you play some golf on the top of the hill, and then you come back down. Absolutely gorgeous. And then another course that's not going to be on one of these lists, mostly because it's in France. But, I'm not using that as a disqualifier. I played Le Touquet, north of Paris on the coast, sort of across from Royal St. George's, across from Royal Cinque Ports, and a Tom Simpson that's recently gotten some love. It's just a really cool dunesland course. You never actually see the ocean, but it's there. So if you find yourself over in France, you can play some of the well-known courses, the Morfontaines, the Fontainebleaus, but get up to Le Touquet as well.
I'm going to give one hidden gem. If you come to Oklahoma, Shangri-La up on Grand Lake. It's a 27-hole golf course, and they just built a 18-hole par 3 called the Battlefield. It might be the best par 3 course I've ever played. Very underrated because it's off the beaten path a little bit, in between Joplin, Missouri, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Great place for a guy's weekend, and you won't go wrong there. All right, let's get into what we call the Shotgun 9. Jake, this is where we just want to get to know you a little bit, maybe throw in a few political questions. Looking for some fast answers. As Rob said, we're going to ask some political questions that don't involve the size of Arnold Palmer's manhood. But let's go ahead and let's just start with a political question. What do you think about Yasser Al-Rumayyan sitting with Donald Trump Saturday night at the UFC fight? Does this mean that the president of the United States is going to be working to try to bring the PGA Tour and LIV together? Is there going to be a merger? What do you think about the politics of all that?
Matt, at this point, I don't even care what happens with PGA and LIV. I love golf courses. I try and stay so far removed from what's happening in the world of professional golf. And at this point, if it doesn't impact my ability to watch the Masters, the US Open, and the British Open, there's really, not much I care about. So if he manages to broker a deal, good for him, would probably get some much needed credibility back.
Are there any of his golf courses that you guys think are underrated or overrated, real quick?
Trump's courses?
Yeah, what do you say is the most overrated, the most underrated of his golf courses?
I think they're probably where they should be. I think Turnberry is best in show of all of his properties by far. That's one of the best courses in the world. I think Doonbeg in Ireland is overrated. I don't think I would probably play that one again. I haven't played his course up in Northeast Ireland, Aberdeen, but I've heard really good things. My only sort of critique visually of looking at it is the fairways aren't like rumpled like the land around it. They're kind of so smooth and a little too perfect for links golf. But the place looks beautiful. I'll give him credit. I will stipulate that I think he is a corrupt, ignorant.
You do?
Ignorant, fascist.
Here we go.
Twat. And it is an embarrassment every single day to wake up knowing that he will again be president of the United States. However, I do give him credit for running nice clubs, good golf courses. He treats his members right. I'm friends with a lot of folks that are members at Bedminster and Doral and Trump Jupiter and West Palm Beach. I've played pretty much all of them. They're in great shape. They're good courses. He's doing something right. They always have good service, good food. Parking lot's always full. So I wish he would take a lesson from the team running the golf courses on running the country. I am hopeful that the sequel will not be as bad as the original motion picture, but I will just say for the record, I can't fucking stand the guy. And I will just put that out there in case I had not made myself clear in prior episodes.
Well, I learned something about Rob today, his political affiliate. Now, I played none of the golf courses. I just know that the better ones are overseas. So if you're going to play the Trump courses, probably focus on the ones in Scotland and Ireland first.
All right, Rob, let's start with any more Shotgun 9 questions you have.
Ooh, okay. This Sunday, Pittsburgh Steelers, hypothetically, let's say the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing the Minnesota Vikings in Minneapolis. What is the score?
I think it's going to be close. You're talking about 2 8-2 teams these days. So, we'll take a probably 28-24 victory for the home team, probably a Sam Darnold touchdown pass to finish off the game. I mean, he gives the ball away, but he is scoring touchdowns right now, and I got to take the home team.
All right, wrong answer. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing this as a Super Bowl. Dream foursome, but in your foursome, you have to include a celebrity or professional athlete, a politician, and a professional golfer. Living or dead, who's your dream foursome?
Okay. Celebrity, I'd probably take like a Minnesota sports legend. You know what? I'll go with Larry Fitzgerald. Good Minnesota representative. Grew up in Minneapolis.
Although he played for Pitt.
He did play for Pitt. I can get around that. Politician. Do they have to be a golfer? Or can I just we'll teach them on the course? Yeah. I'd say honestly, I'd love to play with Obama. I know that's not like a hot take or a long dead person, but I think he has struck me as the most presidential of any recent American politician.
He loves the game of golf. I mean,
he loves the game of golf. And then thirdly, is a professional golfer, living or dead. I think Ben Hogan. I don't know. He's just got the sweetest swing. This will be the spot for the old dead guy.
Okay. I was really expecting a Jesse Ventura in there. But
which category does he fall into?
Good question. He was a very successful professional wrestler in the 80s, but we'll put him as Governor Ventura.
So we're making him the political appointee. Okay.
Yes. Okay. In 2025, what are the 5 golf courses that you have not played that you are most excited to play, regardless of architecture, just experience?
I mean, obviously the architecture is always going to be part of the experience, but experience included. Boy, we can pick from anywhere I haven't played before and would like to play.
Yeah.
I'll go. I haven't played a lot of the top places that I know you have, Rob. I think Cyprus is probably my number one in the world that I'd like to see. Obviously, Augusta would be on that list. I think I'll only pick one of the Long Island courses and say National Golf Links. I think just more my style of golf course. Really cool experience from everyone that I've heard talk about it. And then I'll pick a few that are a little bit further down some of these lists. I would love to go see Friars. That's another New York one, but I'll pick it anyways. Friars Head on Long Island. And then I think Marion East is one that's always punched above its weight for me. It just looks cool. I love those kind of shorter old courses. So that'll be top 5.
All right. Well, Matt, if you're in, I can make all this happen.
I'm in. I'm
be
always
quite
in.
a trip, huh?
I say yes to everything.
Yeah.
I talk a lot of shit on here, but I take care of my friends, and Matt, I'll make sure that it's no coincidence really that 2024 was your best golf year ever. And it was our first year together on the podcast.
That's right.
Like, I am here to make dreams come true.
That's right. And
It's not a coincidence.
I tell my wife, it's work, babe. We gotta build the episode. We gotta build the audience. We gotta make the experience happen so we can talk about these things on the podcast.
Hey, Marina and I have clicked. I think I might be her favorite. I think I might be her favorite podcast co-host on this show. At least
depends on the day,
It depends on the day, but I think I'm in the running.
That's
I got
right.
a 50-50 shot.
Jake, music or no music on the golf course?
Quiet music.
Quiet music.
As long as the guy on the next hole can't hear it, it's fine.
Okay. If you had a chance to play in any event hosted by a Washington, D.C. lobbying firm, what would that event be?
God, it's tough. And there's so many events run by Washington lobbying groups. I think that I've heard about this really great golf event called the MG Cup that happens on an annual basis. I hear they play some top venues. They get a great group together, and I hear they support some great charities. So I think that would have to be number 1.
Perfect answer. You totally redeemed yourself from the football question.
Totally.
And for our listeners, if you haven't listened to the MG Cup episode, go back and listen to it. It's fantastic. Jake, thanks for your time today. This was wonderful. We hope to have you on again. We ought to make sure that we do some on-course content with Jake. That would be a lot of fun at one of these top 100 golf courses. And thank you, everybody that listens to our podcast and downloads it. Find us on YouTube, subscribe, watch episodes there. Or if you'd like to just listen anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, you can download our episodes. Also follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X. We're on all the platforms, and we just hope to keep bringing you great content and just like this, and open up doors for people to learn more about golf, learn more about politics, and have a good time doing it. So, Rob, Jake, thank you, and thank you everyone for listening.